All right, so a lot happened last night, much of which I'm going to address right now, because I think it's good to finally put a end game to this situation or whatever you want to call it. So yesterday I was on, for those of you who don't know, yesterday I was on Zero's panel. Shout out to Zero Hate. Um, I hopped on. I was busy doing something, but once I wrapped that up, I started to speak, spoke to Thai City for a second, and then out of nowhere, I received a lot of hostility from Kuda. Now, prior to that, I was under the impression that Kuda and I were reasonably cool, so it kind of came as a shock to me. Apparently, he was upset about some comments that I made earlier that day on MOT's panel, Man of Tomorrow's panel. Shout out to him. Where I was saying that, why didn't you take in a nutshell, why didn't you take the young man with you to um, show him how to do it, show him the ropes, as opposed to just saying, get a starter bitch. I forget now whether it was a starter bitch or a starter chick. My bad. I'm not working on 8 hours today, so bear with me for a moment. I had a lot to do last night, so and plus I did a panel. Just well, I'll talk about that later, probably in the stream. Anyway, so as it turns out, he did offer to do that, and Hammer turned him down. I don't think that's the best thing to ask somebody for help and then when offered turn it down, but I wasn't aware at the time, so I apologize to Kuda. I thought it would end there, because that's the wrong that I assume prompted this, but apparently because I said fuck you several months ago, like I want to say like 3, 4 months ago, there was still contention. So, he wanted to talk about that, so went to his panel and waited for an opportunity to talk about just that. But something interesting happened. He didn't want to talk about that. He was still defending the concept of game, which led me to ask, is this about us? Because keep in mind, I'm still trying to repair what happened. I mean, so my question, the question that arose was, is this about us or is this about game? Because you're for it and I'm against it. Now I won't go into the details and the minutia of what is game and this and this, because it's meant to be an exhausting conversation, so you can never get to the end of it and then victory is claimed. So not even going to get into that. Um, what I am going to say is that if it was about game, and it was because it very likely was because that's all that was being spoken about. So, if that were the case, I didn't understand the hostility, the level of us hostility at the time. So, had to really think on what was this about. It shouldn't be that deep. People have differences of all types, all types. Like no two people are exactly the same. You're going to have ideological differences on a great many things. Many people are familiar with how I speak on zodiac people. However, I still maintain connections with people who dig deep into that lifestyle. Many people also know that I'm part of the BDSM community more or less, and some people don't agree with it. Especially if you are um, devout religious. So people are always going to have minor differences, and that's what I classified this as. I did not expect such a response, and I was a little taken back to it. I was by it once again, and I was thinking, when was the last time I heard such a response from a person? And it was years ago when someone was trying to sell me on his religion. And simply put, I told him that I wasn't interested, um, and he said, you know, why not? And I said, why should I be? And, I was, because I was frustrated at the proposition that someone would assume that at a red box of all places that he would convert me to his theological beliefs. And um, he said, and I'm not going to say which religion it was, but it's one of the ones where the members are groomed to be very aggressive in it. So, there's that. Um, During this back and forth, he was explaining to me some of the points of his religion, and I became frustrated. I just said, "Look, fam, I'm not really interested, but thanks anyway. Like, why are you interested in it?" And I said that not because I actually cared, but I said that to get him to stop trying to push this belief on me. And he told me that it helped him when he was addicted to drugs. I forget which one, but it wasn't like something like weed. This was something serious, more along the heroin lines. Though I don't know if it was heroin, but he was like really, really downtrodden from what he told me, and it also saved him from when he had thoughts of committing suicide for family problems that he had. So, something, after getting that response, I understood the depth that um, this particular religion is, the value that it adds to his life. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks, but it's not for me. And just kept it pushing. That was, I just, from that day on, I realized certain things you don't mess with. Religion is one of them. You just kind of like, okay, people who there are people out there that feel deeply about it, and it's so ingrained into their being that any attack on a religion will have a greater emotional response than than an attack on the person who has the religion. And I found that interesting, and hadn't gotten a response like that since until last night. Um, Now, religion is something a lot different. Well, maybe a person can be religiously into game, but religion is something a lot different than game. So I wanted to dig a little deeper and understand the religious attachment to game that, was the religious like attachment to game that was somewhat displayed last night. So I remember years ago, I had this book, and I have it right here. Let me just find out what chapter this is. I think this is chapter two. Just get the name of the chapter. By the way, this is Brainwashed by Tom Burrell. And if you give me one moment, let's see. So, in the paperback version, it's chapter two, which begins on page 13, and I am reading page 54 to 55. I think that that's the most relevant part here. It actually took me a while to find it. I reread this chapter, but I remember this part vividly, and I was like, bingo, that's why there is a religious attachment to game. All right, so this paragraph is entitled Stay on the Scene Like a Sex Machine. During slavery, black men were encouraged to see themselves as licentious heathens, subhuman, simian sex machines, and natural born breeders with no emotional attachments. Today, our dilemma is an existential crisis that collectively we've been unable to resolve. How can a black man be a man? Oh, excuse me. How can a black male be a man in America? If we reflect honestly, we concede that our perpetual quest for the next conquest, the need for instant sexual gratification, stems from a deeper personal crisis. The compulsive need to scratch an itch that will not go away. End of paragraph. So I'm gonna stop right there for a second. All right. What was that saying? Let's see. The need for instant sexual gratification stems from a deeper personal crisis. The compulsive need to scratch an itch that will not go away. That's part of the sexual gratification that a person receives from game is something that is seen in the behaviors of a lot of black men today. I'm not saying any names, and this isn't a shot at Kuda or anyone else individually. Uh, this is kind of like speaking to the collective behavior of black men. And earlier in the paragraph, they described it as, animalistic behaviors. So, also, it is a dilemma that we have been unable to resolve. So, that's where we're at night right now. Now, next is a quote from someone named James, 33 years old. And I think that this is the most pertinent part in understanding what transpired. When you are in a room with a white man who thinks they are better than you, assume that they have more money than you, certainly have more advantages than you, a black man can look at him and know, yeah, all that might be true, but I could fuck your woman and I can take her from you. It is your weapon in male racial warfare. Our sexuality trumps yours. End quote. All right. So basically, this James person is talking about a situation when he's in a room with a person who feels that he is superior, a white person who feels that he is superior to you in every way that society measures a man, generally speaking, except maybe physical combat. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he feels that he can best you in that as well. And his reply to that was, yeah, all that might be true, but I could fuck your woman and I can take her from you. It is a weapon in male racial warfare. Our sexuality trumps yours. Bingo. It seems as if this understanding, this come to terms, is helps you cope with the feeling of inferiority that some black men may have with themselves. Once again, this is not a shot at anybody. This is just a general observation made by Tom Burrell. It's a comfort to know that even though all of those things are true, an innate truth is that I can take her from you. That is this person's comfort in life. When you attack an individual's game or sexual prowess, even if that individual will attack your sexual prowess and the sexual prowess of others, if a person is measuring his masculinity against someone like, here once again, white man who thinks they are better than you, assume they have more money than you, certainly have more advantages than you, um, you're taking away their only comfort. You're taking away the final stick from which they feel that they can measure their masculinity against this particular person. Of course, in this case, he's white, but he could be any race, any other race, or maybe even in the same race. And I do hear things like that often. But I can take your bitch though, or don't leave your wife around me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a certain comfort that they derive from that a person who don't really seek that sort of comfort in life won't really understand completely. And what I've come to realize last night is that if that comfort is threatened in any way, then it has to be protected from what I understand, or the masculinity has to represent itself in another way. So, um, and that is, and maybe I'm wrong, but that is my best interpretation of what happened yesterday. Now, I want to say this. What if the person saying this couldn't fuck your woman? You see, this was written about a time where, black males' sexual virility and curiosity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, was at its peak. It was at its pinnacle. It was at its top. That is the time that they were talking about. That it was perceived that, a just by virtue of being black, you can take the white man's woman from him. You were at the top of the sexual hierarchy. That may have been true at a time, and maybe it's true now. Who knows? What women wants fluctuate. If that okay, because then it's going to seem like I'm taking a shot again. Whether or not that's true, it's still it's still a bad thing to attack an individual that way. Even and it's bizarre. It's kind of like the N word. It's kind of like the N word, right? It's okay if they do it. It's okay if, they do it to each other. It's even okay if they do it to you. I'm talking about from a white person's point of view. If a black person were to call a white person the N word, it's okay. But it's never okay for them to call you the N word. Same thing with this. If a person is devout in the game lifestyle, then it's okay for them to challenge your sexual conquest, and it's okay for them to mock the lack of sexual conquest of others. But it's never okay for you to attack theirs because so much is riding on it. You know something? Okay, things aren't always fair. I can live without attacking the or questioning the sexual conquest of someone like this. I can. I have no skin in the game. I also don't give a shit if somebody were to question mine. And I'll give an answer. For whatever reason, particularly in this space, it's questioned from time to time. I think it was in Prophet of Thoughts channel where somebody just super chatted, "When was the last time you had sex?" No, no major concern, just an answer. Um, and I've also been in droughts. So if someone during a drought were to, which this is, which Corona somewhat is, I mean, my sexual life has definitely been stunted as a result of it. And if someone were to ask during a, non-global catastrophe based drought, they were to call me, I not getting any pussy, say no, I'm not. But I shouldn't expect such a reaction from others, especially one who appears to define himself by sexual conquest. It's not the same thing. So, fellas, just keep that in mind. When we have these game conversations, because generally we're talking about the plurality of people who live or attempt to live this lifestyle successfully or otherwise. Um, or didn't mean it like that, but a a person who's just entering the lifestyle and they're unsuccessful, let's put it like that, until they, I guess, learn more about it, and then they will be up on game. So let's see. But yeah, just understand that this is religion. Certain things are hot buttons to certain people. That is better just not pressed. If you're comfortable, then it's okay if they press yours over and over again. Who gives a shit? Because when you're in that room with the white guy, you just like hey, fuck this nigga too, you know. But not everybody is made the same. We all have hot buttons. I have mine. Kuda has his. People have hot buttons. So hey, no biggie. Just avoid pressing them. This is Game Changer 00100 in game. Peace.